Hello, everyone. ESPNFC's post-game reaction to today's Champions League games. Mark Donaldson, joined by Gabriele Marcotti and Stevie Nicol. One of us has got a European Cup winner's medal. Gab, is it you?
No.
Not me.
I might look to purchase one at auction soon.
I wonder if Stevie Nicol's selling his. Let's talk today's two games. Wins for Milan at home in the all-Italian showdown against Napoli. But I want to start with Real Madrid against Chelsea. Stevie, start with you. Real Madrid 2, Chelsea 0. Chelsea played the last half hour with 10 men after Ben Chilwell was sent off. Was that a fair reflection of the way the game went today? Real Madrid winning by 2 goals.
Well, Real Madrid winning is a fair reflection. I'm not so sure the scoreline was a fair reflection. I kind of got the feeling.
Are you okay, Stevie?
Yeah, I'm fine. It was the phone that fell, not me.
Okay, it was the phone.
I kind of got the feeling that Real Madrid had plenty more in the tank and could have changed gears a couple of times if they had to. It was a little strange for me because I wasn't quite sure what Chelsea were trying to do. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't look as though they were really pressing Real Madrid at any stage, and they didn't look as though they were trying to part the boss. It was all very open for Real Madrid, and you can't do that against Real Madrid. You know, I mean, everybody was having a shot at goal, particularly in the first half. Benzema had shots, Vinny had shots, Rodrigo had shots, Valverde was getting shots. So I'm not really sure what Chelsea set out to do, but at one stage I thought they might get away with a 1-0, just because Real Madrid looked as though they thought this was maybe a La Liga game. So, yeah, no question Real Madrid deserve to win the game, but I think 2-0 flatters Chelsea, to be quite honest.
One thing I noticed, Gab, was when Real Madrid scored the opening goal through Benzema, although delighted, Carlo Ancelotti turned to the crowd and said, "Come on, get into this game," because it was pretty quiet to begin with. Did the Real Madrid fans just think, "Oh, it's only Chelsea, this should be pretty easy"?
I don't know if they think it's only Chelsea because, you know, if you remember last year, how those two legs went, obviously Real Madrid went through, but they really had to work for it and they nearly threw it away. And I think that was perhaps Carlo's concern. You know, I think in terms of what Chelsea were trying to do, you know, coming out there with essentially another central midfielder in the mix, you know, I think Lampard got caught between, all right, we're going more defensive. We're going to try to play on the break. We've got Sterling in there, but it's, you know, they may be cognizant of the fact that they didn't want to sit too deep, and yeah, they were neither fish nor fowl. And I think that was probably what frustrated kind of a little bit, that, you know, they could have gotten at them a little bit sooner. You know, maybe get into a situation where you force Chelsea to open up a little bit, and then maybe you can add to the scoreline, which of course they did eventually.
Stevie, if it had gone 3-0, I think you can pretty safely say, despite some funky results in the Champions League over the past few years after a first leg which was one-sided, if it had gone 3-0, Chelsea, forget about it. They are still in with it. They still have a chance. But where are these goals coming from, Stevie?
No idea. Not a clue. There's not a man on the planet knows the answer to that question. And there's certainly nobody at Chelsea that knows where that's coming from either. And they don't look like they're going to score. I mean, João Felix went through one-on-one early doors, and you just kind of knew that he wasn't going to score. Couple of bad touches, Militao gets back, and in the end, it's a save you expect Courtois to make. So I really don't, and you know, and I've got to bring up the fact that how it was at more than 2, particularly after the sending off, is kind of strange to me, because the decision that Frank made to bring on Cucurella to play him at centre back absolutely cost them big time, and I thought was a bad move. I understand if you've nobody else on the bench, but you've got a centre back on the bench. You got Chalobah on the bench, and even the fact that Badiashiel's not even in the squad, just another reason that Chelsea shoot themselves in the foot. So that decision was a disaster. and you've lost. You're talking about how do they score goals to get back and try and win this tie. Well, without Chilwell, who probably right now is their best hope for creating or scoring, he can't play because Cucurella stitched him up big time on the defensively when he has no idea what he's doing in that position. So I think Frank got that wrong as well. I was worried also. I could be wrong. I don't think Silva was injured, right? So
well, it was his first start for a while, and he wasn't quite ready for 90 minutes.
But you're 2-0 down. You can't afford to lose any more goals. Look, you just get through it. You get through it. You take your best defender off, and you got 10 men. You take your best defender off, and you put on Mason Mount. I mean, I was dumbfounded. I was absolutely dumbfounded, and how it didn't end up more than 2 hours. Again, I don't understand because, yeah, I don't know what Chelsea were doing, and I think Frank made some poor decisions.
Gab, I don't think Stevie's the only one scratching his head with perhaps some of the decisions. What about the decision in a split second by Ben Chilwell to do what he did? Was it a case of sacrificing himself and thinking that Real Madrid were going to add another to their tally, or was it just a piece of, oh, you shouldn't have done that and it's too late now?
I don't know. It's always easier with the armchair.
Sure.
We had Don Hutchinson filling in for Jules on the podcast on Monday, and he spoke about how like a footballer's brain was like a supercomputer processing all this different information of the speed at which you're going and where the ball is and what you need to do and what the situation is in the game. So then I wonder, did Chilwell's supercomputer in his brain go and play the percentages there? I don't know. Maybe that's more of a question for the guy who's been there and done that. For Stevie, I mean,
you don't do it. You don't do what Chilwell did. Yeah, absolutely, you don't. The only time you do that is when if he's going to put the ball in the net and there's nobody else there, then maybe you do it. But you don't. Chilwell has just assumed that he's going to score, and he's still got a long way to go, and he's still got a goalkeeper to beat who isn't that bad, who was pretty solid today. So yeah, it's a poor mistake, I think, from Chilwell.
What do you think,
absolutely, you don't do that. That's the only time you do that, as I said, is if you know for a fact he's going to roll the ball in the net. That's the only time it should cross your mind about doing that.
The thing is,
in that position.
From Frank's perspective, he can sit back and say, well, I don't really need Chilwell because we just spent $65 million on a world-class left back in Cucurella, so he can go and play that position.
Hold on. You can rewind the world-class.
Yeah, I share your view on Cucurella. Sorry, so.
Yeah. I've got to tell you, about 15 minutes in, I'm thinking, Are Chelsea kind of being brave here and going for it? Because after Felix went through, and then a couple other times that Sterling, he had a shot that Courtois saved.
Courtois produced a brilliant save, Stevie. That was one of the best saves.
At that stage, I'm thinking, are they being brave here? Because they were getting forward. But then the longer the game went on, the more I thought, no, they're actually not being brave. They're actually not. I don't know what they're doing. That's the biggest surprise to me. That I didn't really know what the game plan was for Chelsea.
I mean, he said what though? Like what? 3 training sessions? Like, I mean, are we going to put all this on Frank?
Gab, I could have turned up. The day before the game and said, right, this is what we're doing. Fine. When we don't have the ball, you're there. I mean, why didn't they do what Milan did? Why didn't they do it in Milan? Do a classic Italian. Eh? Just get men behind the ball. Who cares? You're away from home. You've got nothing to lose. Nobody gives a monkeys if you don't try and score a goal. But don't give them a sniff. And then let the crowd get on the back. And then let the crowd start moaning. And then you might get a break when you might score a goal. Or at least, look, anytime it's a goal kick or a situation like that, everybody squeeze. And maybe we try and win the ball and get a goal there. And then when we lose it, we're back in. Now, you don't need to be there for more than 20 minutes to get a bunch of good football players with good football brains, because they have, and just do that. That doesn't take that long. I've only been talking here for 5 minutes, and you clearly know exactly what I was thinking, right? I've given you a game plan within 5 minutes of turning up. That's what I was looking for from Frank, to be honest. But I didn't see it. I didn't see any of it. I just didn't see what we're doing.
Stevie, it's only half time in the tie. Okay,
No,
Chelsea
no.
are two.
Kid
Hold on.
yourself.
No, it is. Regardless of the scoreline, it's half time in the tie.
Yeah, okay.
There's still a second leg to play.
Ask
So
the Chelsea fan if he thinks it's half time.
I'm asking you what you would say. What do you think Frank Lampard would say ahead of the second leg? He's got more time. Gab's mentioned he's not had much time so far. He's got more time ahead of the second leg. He's up against Real Madrid. What does he do to give Chelsea hope, to ensure that they get the first goal against a side that probably will score in West London?
A little combination of what I just talked about. Because they can't go and just try and play toe-to-toe. You can't do that against Real Madrid. Real Madrid are way better than Chelsea are right now. Way better. You know, it's great to watch a side that plays passes without looking and without thinking, because that's what Real Madrid do. They're playing balls into holes, knowing somebody's going to appear. Whereas you've got Chelsea, when they get the ball, it's get the ball, head up. Where's everybody going? You know, you can't beat proper teams not moving the ball as quickly. You know, because that's what happens when you don't know the players around you and you don't know what you're trying to do. Then your speed of play slows down. So good teams will be able to defend against you. Whereas you play against Real Madrid, they're not even looking. They're playing balls in behind, down the insides, round the outside, you know, switching play. They're playing football without even looking. So Chelsea's way miles off Real Madrid. So yeah, he's got to come up with something simple and just try and do it the best you can, and hopefully get some luck, because they're going to need a lot of luck not to lose some goals at Stamford Bridge against Real Madrid.
Gab, your background looks like a 19th century alchemist, and your chair sounds like it needs a bit of WD-40 as well, talking about sitting on your armchair and having all these ideas. What can Chelsea do to try and score that they haven't maybe tried so far? Raheem Sterling's back. Would you play him through the middle? Would you bring, and I'm trying to think, is Aubameyang even in the squad for the Champions League?
Aubameyang, no, he's not in the squad.
Well, exactly. So what is left for Chelsea to try and do something different that maybe Real Madrid won't expect next week, because they need to score two from somewhere?
Okay, so I know I shouldn't like him for many reasons, but I'm a big fan of the best on earth, Kai Havertz.
The best on earth.
Well, you've heard that, right? You know what he's worth.
Yeah, I know.
I think realistically, you know, I think he's got to be a part of it because he gives you a threat on set pieces, and because for all the abuse that he's taken right now, given Armando Broja's out, you know, if you talk about actual center forwards, he can play as an actual center forward more so than, you know, you do the Raheem Sterling little guy thing running around or whatever, or experiment, play Pulisic through the middle, whatever you want. But, you know, I think that has to be your starting point. Joe Felix, among Chelsea fans, as you know, I'm speaking to you now I'm less than a mile away from Stamford Bridge. You know, some people think that, because he does some tricks and stuff and he's unpredictable, he's got to be in there. I'm not sure. I would go for a lineup that allows you to get service to Havertz, have Sterling or Mudryk or Pulisic. Sorry, I'm kind of, none of these guys are having a great time right now. That's like
there's a lot of the fans saying Pulisic, just get him involved, see what he can do. Would you?
Yeah, roll the dice. Yeah, sure.
Got to try something.
I got to try something. But as Stevie said, you're 2-0 down. You're not. It's not like you're 4-0 down. You know, I think you involve Pulisic if you have a plan for what he's going to do and what he can do and how he can be involved. I don't like this kind of. I know Chelsea haven't been great, but at least the João Felix Havertz partnership, at least the other people around them knew what they were doing. I mean, I think one of his big calls is going to be, do you play the 3-man midfield again because you want Conte in there. You want Conte involved. Obviously, he's only recently come back from injury. Obviously, that's why he didn't play at the weekend. But are you going to get the real Conte so soon? I don't know. You also have another fundamental problem here, which is Enzo Fernandez in front of the back four. That's not his position. And so you don't get the best of Enzo. And it's not hard, as we saw a little bit tonight, for the opposition to, whether it's Benzema dropping off or somebody else, just to put a guy on him. And then at that point, all he's going to do is pass the ball sideways. And then you take him out of the game very easily, because that's not his position. He's not a deep lying playmaker, and he's not a defensive midfielder. And if you ask him to do that, you lose the drive that he gives you from midfield. You're not going to be able to fix that between now and next week. But I think what you can do is you go for it, and you stick to what you've done most of the season, hoping at some point it clicks. I know the results haven't been good, and that's why people would say, oh, look, it's a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But I just don't see how, throwing another crazy curveball, messing around with your lineup, I don't see how that's going to help at Real Madrid, because, they can ride this out.
Okay, before we get on to Milan against Napoli, Stevie, final question with regards to Real Madrid and Chelsea. Is complacency the biggest danger for Real Madrid rather than Chelsea next week in the second leg?
I don't see how Real Madrid are going to get complacent. I don't see it. This is the Champions League we're talking about. This is, they look as though, when you see them playing in La Liga recently, it's almost like they've given the title to Barcelona. We want to go and win the Champions League again. So, considering the vibes that I'm getting from Real Madrid, this is the one that they've got their eye on. This is the one they're concentrating on. I don't see any complacency whatsoever. If they're going to lose this tie, then Chelsea's going to have to do something extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
They really are.
Okay, Milan against Napoli. And by the way, when you've won a competition 14 times, you're not complacent. So, yep, Chelsea got all to do next week. Milan beating Napoli, just like they did in the league a few weeks ago, Gab. Second leg still to come. No Osimhen for Napoli today. It was a great atmosphere. It was a good game of football, this one. How finely balanced is it now? And did Milan deserve that win in this one?
Well, you say just like they did in the league. Other than the fact that they won the game, I thought this was a very, very different match. I thought Milan... I thought Napoli can consider themselves extremely unlucky. Let's not forget, it's not, they had maybe 4, maybe 5 chances, really clear-cut chances to score in this game. And Mike Mignon, Magic Mike, once again, if he's not the best goalkeeper in the world, I think you can, you're going to count him on the fingers of one hand. So I think this kind of reconfirmed what we already know. And if you're Napoli, you come away from this boosted, because sure, it's a defeat, and but you know that you can turn this around. You can turn this around at home. I thought Milan, they put up the same lineup. They tried to do a lot of the same things that they did in the first when they won 4-0 in Naples, but it just worked differently. Tomori at the back, I thought, really struggled on many occasions. They were unable to control Lobotka in Napoli's midfield the way they did when they faced each other at the Maradona. And I almost feel like also, after the goal, it was almost a case of like, all right, let's try and manage this. And managing leads, it's not what won Napoli. It's not what won Milan the title last year. And I don't necessarily think that they're comfortable doing that. They did it obviously against Spurs or whatever, but it's hard to do against Napoli. Maybe they thought that without Osimhen and without Simeone and Napoli throwing this curve of playing Elif Elmas up front. And I know people are going to say, look, he's a false 9. He's not a false 9. He played like a 9 with the characteristics of Elmas, obviously. I think that kind of threw them for a loop, because obviously he's very different to what Simeone would have brought, or obviously what Osimhen would have brought too. So it took Milan I think if you're Milan, you're happy with the result. You get a big boost because Anguissa was sent off. He won't be there in the return leg. And more importantly, Kim picked up a booking. So he's going to be suspended for the return leg. I would assume they'll play, João Jesus, maybe Ostergaard, probably João Jesus at the back. Again, not the same thing, major drop in quality. And so I think that gives Milan hope, and you're hopeful for the return leg because you've got that goal lead. But on the evidence of what we saw tonight, Napoli are a better team.
Stevie, you make Napoli favourites to go through after that result?
No, absolutely. I would be a little concerned though if I'm a Napoli fan. I thought they looked a little frustrated at the end, and no question, without Simeone, without Osimhen, they struggle to have a guy that puts the ball in it. I mean, who would have thought that Crash really would be the guy who would be sitting on the bench at the end of the game? You're taking your joker, pretty much, your match winner, your star, your everything, and he spends the last 10, 15 minutes on the in his backside when you're 1-0 down. I just thought by the end of the game they looked a little frustrated, which I don't think augurs well going into the second leg. No question, they're favourites. The way they've been playing all season, they absolutely are favourites. But the way they played recently, there might be some little doubts creeping in. And all it'll take is a little breakaway from Diaz again, or a bit of skill like Diaz did for the first goal. And all of a sudden, this whole tie changes. It's not. I thought this was going to be clearly Napoli's waltz into the semi-final. I'll be honest. I know they lost 4-0, but you forget that game. But what I saw tonight completely changed my mind about them walking through this tie. I just saw a little bit of frustration and a little wonder where the goals are coming if Simeone and Osimhen are not playing. And everybody's thinking Osimhen's going to be fit. Well, he might not be injured next week, but he's not kicked the ball in anger for a long time. So it's not quite as clear cut as I thought this was going to be. Let me put it that way.
But Stevie, he has the new mask though. Remember.
Oh, well, there you go.
The injury coincided with him losing his mask, which gives him his Tony Stark-like Iron Man superpowers. They've put together high-tech new mask for him. So, I don't know. I like to think he can hit the ground running when he comes back.
I'll make go back to the drawing board then. Sorry.
By the way, Gab, it just shows you Stevie's talking about how Napoli had momentum and they didn't quite look themselves. It's so difficult to, as Man City have found, to ensure you've got momentum in the league, to play at that high level that you've shown week in, week out, because this is a cup final for Milan. It's a cup final for Napoli. Then they've got to get through to the semi-final, and if it's Inter, it's a cup final in both legs as well. The pressure at this stage of the season for teams that aren't used to playing at this stage of the Champions League, certainly not Napoli, reaching the semi-finals, that doesn't happen to Napoli. So there's a whole lot of other things. No momentum, you win it back, you've still got pressure. It's very difficult to keep that level up, isn't it?
It is. And I think, fundamentally, even if you're a super accomplished team, I mean, even Man City can't do it all season long, right? They're on a great run now, but, there's a reason that they're 6 points behind Arsenal. It's because they haven't played at this level all season long. And, he's fiddled with the lineup, he's changed things around, and now he's getting the benefits. I think in Napoli's case, what really helps them is having this enormous lead in Serie A, and being kind of on their way to the third title. That's tremendous because this is not a city that wins Serie A titles very often, and the fact that they're so close, it's almost like, I don't say it's anticlimactic because it can never be that way in Naples, but the Champions League is gravy for them. Now, obviously, you're in the situation where, in my opinion, you're by far the best team on your side of the draw. So you don't want to pass it up, but you don't have the same layer of pressure on you, I think, that you would have in normal circumstances if you're also competing in the league, or in Milan's case and Inter's case. You're competing for a spot in the top four, which makes a huge difference to your budget next season. That's all still uncertain. So in that sense, I think Spalletti's done a great job in sort of insulating Napoli from pressure this season. And I disagree a bit with Stevie. I don't think it was a pressure getting to them. I think maybe if they look different, it was also maybe because of the players that were missing. But again, they showed, I look at the chances created, the chances conceded, and they had the upper hand again without their best player. And I think that says a lot. And down to 10 men at the end of the game as well.
Steven? This is where Spalletti and his 400 coaching staff that everybody has these days are going to earn their corn. Because, Gab's right about the fact that they're going to waltz Serie A means that, yes, he can rotate and save players' legs so that, between now and hopefully a Champions League final, everybody's fit and healthy and strong and ready to go for that final. The problem is, if you let the players drop down in training and slow things down too much and rest too much, it can hamstring you when it comes to stepping on the field and expecting. Or even though you're well rested, you don't want to take that little spark away.
But I think you made a great point, Stevie, and Spalletti addressed that. If you look this season, he's actually rotated very little. He's rotated his wingers a little bit, and that's about it. And in fact, and that's actually maybe been one of the criticisms that have been leveled at him. You should rotate more and whatever. And then that's because he's a big believer in chemistry. And I think he said, I think he's also done it for that very reason. That, as long as they were winning, he says, the players, he's a big believer of those guys that thinks, fatigue, part of it is in the mind, right? And because they kept winning, he saw no reason to rotate them. He didn't see them as being tired. They were winning easily. They were enjoying themselves. And he didn't want to break that. And that's kind of what he's done really most of the season. I'm talking more about managing the pressure that comes from the outside, because winning a title in Naples, is like winning a title in Liverpool. Not when you were winning titles in Liverpool, because you won them every other year and it was expected. But last time when Klopp won it, right? Where you've got the city that's so starved for success, the fans are so in your face, and that is what can be. That's what can be really difficult. So I think in that sense, that's what we mean when we talk about insulating them from pressure a little bit.
Let's wrap this up. Thank you both for your chat. Stevie afterwards was a way to buy an Iron Man mask. Gab's a way to get some anti-squeak juice from the local corner shop for his chair. But I want to get from you both, please, your Champions League finalists, now that you have seen the 4 first legs yesterday and today. Start with you, Stevie. Who's your Champions League final between this year, based on what you've seen so far?
Manchester City.
Okay.
I'd have to go with Napoli.
Okay. Gab.
If Osimhen's fit.
Mm-hmm. Gab.
Yep.
I'm going to go with whoever wins this Milan-Napoli tie. So most likely Napoli. And I'm going to go with Real Madrid. What a way for Carletto to sail off into the sunset.
Head down the Rio Grande, perhaps, and off to the Seleção, maybe, with a 15th Champions League title. Are we going to get Real Madrid against Manchester City again? Time will tell. Second legs next midweek. Full coverage right here at ESPNFC. My thanks to Stevie Nicol and to Gab Marcotti. I'm Mark Donaldson, and we'll do it all again very soon. Bye for now.